Good evening, YouTube. It is 9 p.m. in the great state of Texas, and today we are working with Ambrosia. So, I've worked with some Ambrosia in the past, and I should have done some subtle foreshadowing of that small little crack that's in the bottom of that blank that you saw there briefly. You can see it where that tiger stripe is. Really didn't inspect the wood all that well, and that's going to come back later to kind of bite me in the ass. So if you guys could tell probably by the title of the video, things are not going to go our way on this project. But I've worked with Ambrosia before, and I usually have really good outcomes with it, and that's kind of what I expected with this one as well. However, here in a little bit, you're going to discover that, sometimes your best intentions just don't work out the way that you want to. So we get everything glued up, we take our 15-minute epoxy, put the, pine blank on there, and we get it going on the lathe. We're getting some beautiful shavings. Things are going well, just like most of our videos do in the beginning portion of them. However, a little bit later here in a bit, we're going to have a small little issue, but there's always a good side of messing up. So it'll make for an interesting project a little bit later. But we get the cylindrical shape that we want. Now we're just making the mortise on the bottom. This part goes easy, no issues whatsoever. I'm thinking, okay, the project's going well, and I'm excited about it. Ambrosia's like one of the cooler woods to work with. It has like really cool tiger striping in it. If you've ever worked with it before, really like the grain and what it looks like. However, we're not going to get a chance to really capitalize on that one in this project. So we're taking the parting tool, separating the small little piece from what I'm thinking will be the lid. So that still, is on there a little bit. So then we got to take the parting tool, boom, pops right off. No issues whatsoever. So this is the actual portion that was supposed to be the pot, and it goes onto the chuck, no issues whatsoever. And then we start the actual gouging portion of it, and just, I guess, just hit that right spot. It cracked, split. The chuck jaws probably split that mortise once the momentum got going, and just completely cracked the blank itself. So I'm like, all right, two perfectly good pieces that I can't do anything with. However, I still have the lid portion, and that's what's going to end up being the remaining project here. Is just this small little piece, which was supposed to be the lid, so I'm having to take really small shallow strokes, and honestly I didn't even think I was going to get anything out of this. This ended up being probably one of the smallest little dishes that I've ever made. I can't even call it a bowl. It's like a dish. It's like something, it's still nice. I mean, if your wife has jewelry or rings or something, you could probably put that in there, but not going to be this ginormous project that I had kind of planned going into it. But I get that reversed on the chuck, and then I just start doing my thing where I'm separating that pine blank, and then just deciding how deep in depth can we really go with this, because there's honestly not enough material left to kind of work with. So that's kind of problematic here. So then I'm like, okay, well, the worst thing that's going to happen is that it'll explode again on the lathe. So I start gouging, and I'm getting some pretty good material off. The chisels are just kind of melting through the Ambrosia. It's really soft wood to work with. And then I just pretty much just take my time just deciding how deep I want the bowl or the dish to kind of be. So I end up using a majority of the rest of this with just my flat carbide tool, my square, and then just taking pass by pass, slowly but surely, just trying to work the edges off. I'm really concerned that I'm going to eat through and I'll end up getting through to the chuck, so I stop and start it a couple of times, and then just decide to take a couple of more strokes. Try not to get too greedy with it, because that's the problem with working with shallower pieces that are this small, is that there's not a lot to work with, so the margin of error is kind of small. But we end up making this small little shallow dish, and you can kind of see the cool tiger striping on it here in just a little bit, just finishing up the edges with that smaller carbide tool, and you can see there it looks pretty cool. And this is just a small plate you could use for jewelry. Essentially, it's nothing big, but we go from 50 grit to 120 up to 180. Didn't spend a whole lot of time. Do a majority of your work with your 50 grit sandpaper. Actually, this is 80 grit sandpaper. I don't even know why I say 50, but did this portion. Just really disappointed that it just didn't work out the way that I envisioned. However, of course, I did save those two pieces, and we will be able to do something with that in a later episode. But here are all the wood shavings, just this small little Ambrosia bowl, and I'm gonna have to clean all of this up eventually. which if you guys saw my shorts, I ended up doing that. But getting everything cleaned up later, and now we're going to start the polishing portion of it here. Going to finish it up with my Yorkshire grit like we usually do for the all wood blanks. You can see that really cool grain kind of pop on that. Looks really cool in my opinion. Just, again, disappointed that we just didn't have what we wanted at the end. And then just going to hit it with that beeswax and then just seal it up, and then probably end up giving this to my wife and just going, okay, well, you can put some rings or some jewelry in there if you want to. I mean, it's functional, but it's just not what we intended when we went into the project. But you know, here it is at the end. Still looks cool. It'll be functional. Obviously, some subtle foreshadowing there. We're going to add some epoxy to that in a later video, and then we're going to try to make a bowl with that ambrosia. But here we go. I show failure on the channel, and it's always important to show your mistakes. So hope you liked it. Hope you got something out of it, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.